I decided to use COVID-19 for my personal application project topic. This virus has had a profound impact on the daily life of everyone, but it has been especially problematic for those who are older or who have underlying conditions. I have 2 children who are at increased risk from COVID-19 due to having underlying conditions, so I have been keeping track of the trends. I live near Seattle, so of course I want to focus on statistics from Washington State. But as we may be traveling this summer, I thought it would be helpful to use the data from the United States as well. So for the first requirement, I used an if function to insert the first 2 digits of my I number into a column in both the Washington State and United States data sheets. I marked them with a comment and used them in many types of calculations throughout the sheets. So as you can see, there's a comment here in this box, and my number is 23, the first 2 digits, and it's throughout this column, and I used this if statement here to create that. So here are some of the things I worked on to make my project original and creative. First, I obtained my data from a variety of different sources to make sure it would be unique. Some of these sources include the Washington State Department of Health, the worldometer.com, and the Center for Disease Control, or the CDC, among others. Next, I used data from both Washington State and from the United States. As you can see over here, I added regions, and over here I added population to the main data sheets in order to make the data more original and to improve my overall ability to use advanced functions. This is the case with my my United States data sheet as well. I added regions and I added populations, which I looked up on various websites. I also added some calculations in order to filter data and to create new tables on the main data sheets. So over here, I used if and if or to filter out the data. You can see the formulas up in the formula bar. And over here, I used COUNTIFs and SUMIFs to create these 2 charts. And on this one, for example, I used the number of counties per region with over 500 cases. And this one was the number of counties per region with below 500 cases. And I made an entire chart with that and another chart over here with the SUMIFs. It was my goal to make the data highly usable for my audience, so I color-coded everything according to whether it was part of Washington State data or United States data. So as you can see, this one, all of the headings are in green and all the tabs are in green. And if you look over here on the charts are green and the lookup functions are green and also the summaries. And then all of these are in blue so that they're easily identifiable, that you can tell which statistics you're looking at a glance. I added some conditional formatting to some of the data to make it easier for the user to understand it quickly. For example, here on the Washington State page, I had added all of these regions, and I used conditional formatting in order to highlight the colors so that it'd be easy to identify which counties belong to which region. And then here I used some icons to get an idea of how these numbers relate to each other. And over here on the deaths and the populations, I used a data bar to help easily see which ones are the largest and which ones are the smallest. Then I also used some conditional formatting over here to highlight the higher values and the lower values. And I did the same thing over here on the United States page with the icons and the data bars and the conditional formatting. So over here on the lookup formulas, I decided to add protection to the sheets so that because the users might accidentally change the functions while using the sheet. I also chose to use the most advanced functions that we've learned about in this class in my project. And right here is a page with the VLOOKUPs and the advanced VLOOKUPs functions. So I can do by county and by the statistics, the categories here. So say deaths, and then it will automatically show up over here. And I also did the same kind of thing with the United States data. So then also on the summaries sheets for Washington, and there's another one for the United States, I used SUMIF functions and COUNTIF functions to calculate these. And then also on the Washington State and the US main data pages, I used COUNTIFs and I used SUMIFs, and I also used if and if or to filter things through. And these are some of the most advanced functions that we have used. In addition, I used the pivot tables and pivot charts with slicers so that you can slice out the information however you want it to be. And you can even add more than one if you want to. And the chart updates as well as the table. I worked really hard to make all of the sheets user-friendly so that the data would be easily found and understood. So if I go over here to the advanced lookup formulas, you can see that these are interactive as well as the slicers. And so because they're interactive, it allows the user to select and filter through the information on their own and decide what it is that they need to look at. And then while these things took a bit of time to set up, I wanted to be sure that they could be, that the user could easily find the exact data that they were looking for. I went over each of my sheets and reviewed them for the standards of professionalism, and I checked my work against these standards to be sure that each of my sheets met these standards. So for example, I made sure to turn off the grid lines, align cell content consistently, and use decimals appropriately and consistently, to wrap text when appropriate, to group the data, and to make sure that the input and output cells are properly identified. So as you can see, the lines are turned off, everything is aligned in a center line, and this is grouped in its own little group, and also the input and output cells are identified. The input cells are identified in yellow and the outputs are in white. So then that helps the user to understand how to use the sheets correctly. This project was a really challenging project, but it was also a great learning opportunity for me. I feel it cemented my learning and helped me to think creatively about some of the ways I can use these skills going forward. I plan to use them to help me better organize our family finances as well as our food storage. And if I start my own business, which I would like to do, these skills will be a great asset to me. So thank you very much.